Well, hello everyone. Welcome to the self-knowledge lectures. As every Sunday, today we are having our Phase B lectures, which are 25 lectures that try to go deeper into this knowledge about the self-realization of the being. In this Phase B lectures, we talk a lot about what initiation is, and today we are going to talk about a very important part of initiation, which is like the beginning of the initiation, um, which is the lighting of the sacred fire. And well, okay, I think everything's okay here. So let's immediately start with today's topic. You probably have heard about the Kundalini serpent or the Kundalini fire. Today we are going to try to make you understand what is this sacred fire, what is the fire of the Kundalini or the Kundalini serpent, what is its importance, and how you can get to light the sacred fire in yourself. And well, what is the sacred fire? The sacred fire or the Kundalini serpent can be said that it is the solar fire that is enclosed in our seminal atoms. It is like the burning electronic substance of the sun, which when released transforms into God. So the objective of today's lecture will be to get to understand what is the sacred fire, to get to know what are the steps and the requirements to awaken the sacred fire of the Kundalini in us. Just a second. Okay. And that way, reaching initiation. So, let's start by getting to understand what the sacred fire is. And I think that to understand what is it and what is the power that this Kundalini power represents, it is convenient to understand that the enemy of the voice or the enemy of the word is fire. And that this living fire, this living and philosophical fire that makes chaotic matter fertile is the cosmic Christ, is the Logos or the great word. Well, maybe this explanation is not clear enough for you, but if you remember in lecture number 28 of the Phase B, we spoke about what the universal and the individual Christ is. For that reason, we always say that it is important that in order for you to get to understand the Phase B lectures better, you previously watch the videos of the Phase A lectures. Because if you understood the lecture 28 of the Phase A, and you now understand what is the universal Christ or the cosmic Christ, then it will be like easier for you to understand that universal Christ that is formed by all the beings that have already reached the total development of their inner Christ until they become creator gods, to be part of the great work of the Logos of the created fire that is inside of us in our individual Christ. So that means that fire that is actually Christ, that is actually a force, because Christ is not a historical person. It is actually a force that can be developed in each one of us. It is said that Christ is a great work through which everything that has been done was done. That it was with God, and that it was a God. And actually, if you get to reflect on these words, and you get to reflect in many things that we can even find in Christianity, as it is now, you can actually get to understand that when people talk about Christ, they think they are talking about a person, and they don't understand that Christ is just a force that can be developed in everyone. So we need to understand that we are all potential gods. As in our interior, we carry like the seed of divinity. And by developing this seed, that will allow us to develop our individual Christ so that we can come to become the living manifestation of God as well. These gods that make up the army of the world are in charge of making all the creations in the universe. When something in the universe needs to be created or needs to be destroyed, they are the ones who do that work. And for this, they must channel and they must manifest their inner fire. That is their great logos. But for the logos to appear, for they to have like that power to create through the verb or to destroy, they need to make like an unfolding. Because for the logos to appear, for fire to appear, or to come into manifestation, the one must unfold into the two. You get to understand this. Because for the gods to create, since they are androgynous beings, they have integrated in themselves both forces, the positive and the negative, the masculine and the feminine. They must unfold the father in the mother. And from the union of the two opposites, the third force is born, which is the fire. And that fire is the logos, is the Christ, is the word, because it is that fire is like channeled through the verb, through mantras, because gods create, use and destroy using mantras. And actually, it's this fire that makes possible the existence of the universe in the dawn of any creation. So the fire, the Christ, the Logos is, what it has been, and what it will always be. Fire is like the life that resides in all things, is what gives life to everything. So for that reason, we need to understand that as we are a microcosm, that is, as we are a universe in miniature, we need the chaos of the universe actually also resides right now in our interior. And where? In our seminal system. Right now, in that inner chaos are our polluted waters, and all our fire is currently trapped in each one of our psychological defects. That is our inner chaos. But just as God had to fertilize the waters of chaos to create a universe, we must do the same. Fertilizing our inner waters, the inner waters of our chaos, to make our inner universe emerge. And for this, we must rescue our fire that is currently trapped in our desire. And you know that desire in us represents our psychological eyes. And we must also start cleaning our waters, which is our mercury. Let's remember that in topic number 5 of the Phase B, we talk about alchemy. And we were talking about the tria prima, which were those 3 fundamental alchemical compounds used in the great work. And we were talking about how that alchemical mixture had to occur within us so that we could achieve that maximum alchemical work, which is the transformation of the lead into gold. Because if we fertilize our sperma in that spermatic chaos with the Kundalini fire, then the intimate Christ can arise from there which is the golden child of the sexual alchemy. So we are going to like convert our or the lead of our personality, of our act or current state, to the gold of the spirit. Then we must understand that the lightning in us of the sacred fire of the Kundalini and all the interior work will start and will consist of 3 steps through which we will obtain and purify those 3 alchemical components. Remember the mercury that in alchemy refers to the waters, which in us are a sexual energy. All the power of the Kundalini is currently found in our seed, in our sexual energy. The Kundalini is, we must say, like the fire of the semen, and men and women has their own semen. Even though men see their semen like in the externally when they get to spill it, actually the woman also have her own semen, and the fire has its habitat in our water. And if we spill those waters, we are also spilling our fire and we remain in darkness. And that is why chastity is the foundation of the great work. If we want to transmute our sexual forces, we must first be chaste and not spill a single drop of our semen. That is never reaching orgasm and ejaculation. That is learning to go to the sexual practice with our partner, get sexually connected, but never reach orgasm and ejaculation, which is by pleasure spilling the power that is inside us. But to start channeling this power, this energy through our spine to the superior centers. And for this, we must work in reflective meditation, in the elimination of all those details of the self of lust that lead us to fornication, which is to spill our sexual energy through orgasm and ejaculation. And we must start understanding these defects. We must start studying all the times that we have fornicated and how. See all the details of these defects and eliminate each one of them in our emotion, in our mind, and in the actions, so that we can go to the practice of the suprasex and we have a control over our sexual desire, so that we never ever reach the point of spilling our sexual energy, but we can always channel that energy inwards and upwards through our spine. That is to be chaste. And remember that for the suprasexuality to be made, we need to have chastity, fidelity, and love. And also another work that we must do is at all times be practicing the psychological death from moment to moment. That in order to achieve a right feeling, a right thinking, speaking, and acting. And that way we are going to start balancing our centers, and that will allow us to purify our internal waters, transforming our mercury from black, which is its current state, to white, and from white to yellow, and from yellow to red. We already talked about that in the topic number 5, but it is important to recall all this information. Now let's see the second element of alchemy, which is sulfur. And in alchemy, sulfur is the sacred fire that must fertilize the mercury, the water. And the Kundalini, as I was saying, is the fire of the semen. And that fire is the product of the psychological death. Because currently all our fire, all our inner soul, our encouragement is caught and conditioned by our desires. And you know that desire is the self in us, each one of our psychological defects. And in order for that superior fire of consciousness to emerge in us, we must start denying all our egoic desires, like refusing our egoic desires. And we do so through the practice of the psychological death by self observing ourselves from moment to moment, judging each one of the selves that continually manifest, leading us through desire to think, to feel, to speak, and to act always in a wrong way. And also to constantly misuse all of our energy resources, and we must observe them, judge them, so we get to comprehend it is actually a manifestation of the ego that I'm having in my mind, that this that I'm thinking, where is this coming from? And actually, when I get to judge my thoughts, I get to understand that now is the defect of worry thinking. Now is the defect of lost thinking. Now is the defect of laziness thinking. Now is the impatient one. Now is the tyrant. Now is the what is that? The lustful one, etc. And if I get to observe that, and I judge, I understand it is a defect in my mind, the same in my emotion, the same when I'm talking, who is talking? When I'm acting, who is acting? If I get to discover the defect that is actually a defect that is manifesting, not my consciousness, I must eliminate that. And how we do so? By asking our own particular divine mother, which is the power of love of our consciousness, to disintegrate that in our interior. Anything that we discover that we know is a manifestation of our ego must be disintegrated in ourselves, and the one that can do that that work is our divine mother. So we mentally ask divine mother, eliminate this anxiety, eliminate this thought, eliminate this emotion, eliminate this fear, everything that we discover we start eliminating. And what we do every time that we eliminate a psychological defect, a portion of that of our consciousness, the one that was trapped in that defect, is going to be released, and that is our fire. All our essences are our inner fire, and in that way we will be rescuing all those trapped essences. That is our fire, and that is the fire that will come to purify everything in our interior, and will come to transmute them into something perfect. And so, with the psychological death, what we are going to do is that we are going to reduce all the elements to the raw material, which is the pure essence. That way, we're going to be dissolving the ego in order to later transmute them in the practice of the suprasex. Well, that is the second alchemical element, and the third one is salt. And in alchemy, salt is that element that acts on sulfur and on mercury, like coagulating them and fixing them. Salt is actually represented in our material works. That's to say, in what we do in favor or for love of our inner work, but above all, what we do in favor or for love of the other brothers of humanity. So they also have the opportunity to awaken their consciousness. Actually, internally, every time that we help others, we receive a payment. Even though we, in the physical world, we give our help, our guidance, our teachings, whatever, for free, without any kind of conditioning. Actually, internally, we are paid, and we are paid with salt, which is our internal dharma, which is which represents like the merits of the heart that will allow the serpent of the Kundalini to develop, to evolve, and to progress in our interior. Because the fires of the heart, are the one who control the rise of the Kundalini. So the Kundalini fire is a creative fire, because when sulfur mixes with mercury and rises through our spine to the brain, It comes to awaken our superior centers, and the surplus of this mercury fertilized by sulfur is what must create the existential bodies of the being. So the energy is going to start to be like being condensed or condensed. I don't know how to say that in our spine. And first we are going to regenerate our physical body, then the vital body, and then we are going to start creating our astral body, our mental body, and our causal bodies. So the astral body, the mental body, and the causal bodies are nothing more than mercury fertilized by sulfur. And well, what is the alchemical process for all this? We can say that actually the three factors for the revolution of consciousness is that alchemical process in which is summarized this great work. I mean, it's what we need to do. So if we want to carry out that great work, that is none other that to get our inner Christ to be born, and that we can achieve the intimate self-realization of our being. So, psychological death, as I was explaining, releases the fire, which is the sulfur that is trapped in each one of our psychological eyes. So if we constantly practice the psychological death, we will be all the time like setting free all those essences that we are going to need for the sexual practice, for them to be transmuted. And the spiritual birth, the practice of the suprasexuality, there is where that mixture occurs in the seminal waters, and there the sulfur is going to fertilize the mercury. And well, with the factor of the sacrifice for humanity, as I was saying, this gives us the salt, which is payment that we receive for all the conscious works that we do. Towards our inner work, but most of all, for the benefit of others. So remember, the salt is the one that is going to coagulate and fix these two elements, and that will give us the merits of the heart, so that the Kundalini fire ascend, creating the bodies. And well, the mixture of these three components will result in the vitriol, which is considered in alchemy like the most important chemical substance, because when highly like purified, it was used as a means like to react a substance in it. So, in simple words, vitriol are those seminal vapors into which the semen of the woman and the men who practice sacred sex and who have purified their energy become, and with which when reacting with the Kundalini serpent of the sacred fire, this vitriol or those seminal vapors are going to awaken the sacred fire. Let me see if I can explain it like in simple words. We must know that at the base of our spine there is that serpent that is known as the Kundalini serpent. This serpent is currently asleep, and it is coiled like 3.5 times on itself in the base of our spine. It is actually written in old texts of ancient wisdom that the lower orifice of the spinal channel of ordinary people is like hermetically sealed, and this orifice is known as the Triveni. And the Triveni is the point of the Sushumna where Ida and Pingala intersect. You know, those two serpents that cross along the spine. So the first point when they intersect, there we find that orifice. Well, the seminal vapors, which is known as the vitriol, what it's going to do is that it's going to open this orifice so that the sacred snake penetrates there. So that makes us understand that we need to be practicing in the three factors for the consciousness revolution. We must be practicing the psychological death, also the spiritual birth, and the sacrifice for humanity, so that we have a vitriol like good enough or strong enough or pure enough for it to awaken the sacred snake and for it to open this little orifice that is the tree. Remember that we saw in the last phase B lecture where we were talking about the chakras and the churches, that within our spinal column we have a channel called the sushumna, through which the sexual energy of those who practice the suprasex but who still do not awaken the sacred fire of the Kundalini because they don't have reached like the necessary level of purification of their mercury. Well, through this channel is from where it's ascend, going through the brain and regenerating like this our brain and the higher centers. So their vitriol still doesn't have enough strength to awaken the Kundalini. But in the center of this channel, in this very center of the Sushumna in our spine, there is another channel, a thinner one, which is known as the Nadi Chitra, and through which the sacred serpent of the Kundalini will begin to ascend once the seminal vapors or the vitriol have enough pureness, is strong enough, because we already made the work to turn our mercury into red by balancing our centers, because we already have worked in all our details of fornication, so we don't spill our sexual energy anymore. And well, that way this sacred this vitriol, which are the seminal vapors, are coming to awaken the Kundalini and are coming to lit the sacred fire in us. And when the solar and the lunar atoms in the Ida Pingala make contact in the Triveni, when you have that level of pureness, then by electrical induction, a third force awakens, which is the sacred fire of the Kundalini, opening this Triveni. And by releasing that energy, we enter the path of the authentic initiation. At that point, is known, it is internally known that you already light the sacred fire and you enter the path of the initiation. Actually, in our previous lecture, when we were talking about the initiation and trials, we talked about the whole process and the trials that we must go through to reach initiation and also to advance in the different initiations. And we saw that an interior purification work is necessary that we will carry out with the practice of the 3 factors of the revolution of consciousness. And when our mercury is in yellow, thanks to the work of death in the details, they are going to throw us a trial of fire, in which we will see ourselves like tested in our ability to control our inner fire. Commonly, this is a trial that is like a situation of anger with a couple most of the times. And if we manage to pass that test and to practice super sex that night, then that mercury will turn red internally. So if you go out to the astral consciously, you are going to be able to see the waters, can be the sea, can be a pool, can be even a glass of water. The thing is that you are going to see the water now red. And that will indicate that the sacred fire of the Kundalini has been lit. And from then on, the sacred serpent will begin to ascend through our spinal column each time that we practice suprasex. It's going to start ascending through the Nadi Chitra, which is the channel, the thinner channel, in which the energy is going to be like condensed to create the internal bodies, the existential bodies of the being. And internally, with the initiation, we will receive a silver sword. The one that we are going to receive at first is a sword with a very small blade, and that blade will grow as we progress in the creation of the bodies. That means with every initiation, it is going to be growing more and more. And well, in this way, once we enter, the path of the initiation, we will start advancing in the work of the first mountain. And after we light the sacred fire, each time that we transmute our sexual energy, it is going to be like start condensing in our spinal cord. And when we feel the first 33 vertebrae corresponding to the physical body, we are going to have regenerated our physical body. So we are going to turn our physical body from its lunar state to a solar state. And the second time that we manage to condense 33 vertebrae with our sexual energy, we are going to regenerate our vital body. And the third time that we get to feel the spine of fire, of sexual energy, we are going to create our solar astral body. And that is like the third initiation. The fourth time, we are going to feel the 33 vertebrae of the mental body, creating that solar body. That is the fourth initiation of the first mountain. And the fifth time that we do this work and we feel the 33 vertebrae of the spine of the causal body, we are going to have a solar causal body already created. And that way we are going to possess a human soul, because having a soul is having created those 5 bodies, is to already have a internal constitution. So we'll already have a emotional body, solar emotional body, solar mental body, and solar body of the will, or solar castle body. And when we reach that point, when we already possess a human soul, and when taking the direct path, we will have the right to join our Buddhic body, which is our divine soul. And from that union, the union from the human and the divine, which is known as the perfect matrimony, then the intimate Christ is going to be born. And that intimate Christ, which is like the golden child of the sexual alchemy, because internally we are going to receive in our hands a little golden child, alive, yes, and which is the fire of the fire, the flame of the flame, which is our internal Christ. And this beautiful child is actually a force that is coming to our heart to do some very important works, because it is the force that is going to do all the work of the second mountain. The intimate Christ will have to now create the bodies of gold, because we in the first mountain have already fabricated the solar bodies, but now we will have to perfect these bodies. And we need to turn them into vehicles of pure gold, and that will be one of the works of the Christ on the second mountain. He needs to eliminate in us what is known as the dry mercury, that are the eyes that remain to be eliminated in our psychology at that point, and eliminating the 7 causal selves, so that the existential bodies are perfected and can be covered by the different parts of our being. And to perfect these bodies and convert them into vehicles of pure gold, the Christ must also eliminate the arsenic sulfur. And what is the arsenic sulfur? It is that carnal bestial fire of the atomic hells of men. That fire corresponds to our Kunda buffer organ, or that satanic tail that we all have. There in the second mountain, the intimate Christ is going to completely eliminate that tail, that Kunda buffer organ. And when these bodies are already converted into vehicles of pure gold, they now can be covered by all the different parts of our being. And there, finally, when all of them comes like to serve to an envelope to our King, to our intimate Christ, he comes and he rises from his tomb, and well, the instant that there is such a wrapping, and he comes and he covers himself with these vestments, and he is going to, like, how can I say that, to incarnate in us, because up to that moment, the Christ was like a force that was developing on our heart and that was doing different works. But already at that point, when we already have turned these vehicles into bodies of gold, then that is at the end of the second mountain, the intimate Christ will like emerge into existence. It's going to take control of our whole body. So it's going to incarnate in us. And that intimate Christ is known in alchemy as the magnesium of alchemy. And well, already in on the work of the third mountain, what the Christ will do is that we'll take charge of the world teaching and will unite with the being. And that way is going to become part of the cosmic Christ, or the army of the world, the universal Christ. Well, actually, in the next phase B lectures, we will be like detailing each of the mountains of the initiation, so you get to comprehend this better, because I know that this can be like hard to be like processed just in one lecture. So we are going to be seeing the first mountain in detail, the second mountain in detail, the third mountain in detail, so you get to have very clear the work that you need to do in case you want to do this work. And well, something to keep in mind before ending this lecture is that temptation is fire, and the triumph over temptation is light. So the alchemist has to wrest fire from devil. He has to wrest the immaculate whiteness from darkness. So the alchemist must practice supra sex or sexual magic, so that his black stone, which is like the current state of our sex, shines with fire and then becomes white, like immaculate and pure. But one who, after working with the Kundalini, that is, after doing a job and already awakening the sacred fire in himself, gets used to spilling the semen, that is, gets accustomed to constantly be like having sexual falls, because it's not making like constant and conscious efforts to achieve perfect chastity, well, inevitably will fail, because with each sexual fall, the Kundalini descends one or more vertebrae, depending on the magnitude of the fault. That is, depending on whether the fall was involuntary or not. That is, you can like pass 2 months, for example, 2.5 months, to feel 2 vertebrae with energy, having sexual practicing, suprasexual practices, like, I don't know, 4 or 5 times a week, for example. And if you have a sexual fall, then you're going to be losing those 2 months of work. So that is why we must fight until we achieve perfect chastity, until we reach that point in which we never, it doesn't matter what, we never spill our sexual energy. We are there in the sexual practice, and we manage to all the time channel all of our sexual energy creating our bodies and never having a sexual form. Another important thing to take into account is that this sacred fire, this erotic flame, would never ascend through the spinal channel of couples that are united by mere personal convenience. So we must develop conscious love with a couple because that is like a requirement. Also, the rise of the holy flame in the dorsal spine of adulterous men and women would be impossible. So another requirement for this is to have fidelity to our partner. And would never raise the sacred fire in the spine of those who betray their guru, and the sexual fire would never rise through the marrow of drunks, effeminates, lesbians, drug addicts, murderers, thieves, liars, slanderers, exploiters, greedy, blasphemous, sacrilegious, etc., etc., etc. So we must take all these points into account. We must work on all those defects in ourselves, and also we must start developing conscious love towards our partner and fidelity, and we must learn to seek the guidance of our inner being, which is our inner guru, and we need to obey him. We need to develop the obedience to our internal being, to our inner father and to our internal mother. That if we really want to start and to advance on the initiatic path. And well, people, this has been today's topic. I hope that you get to comprehend this lecture. If there is nothing that you did not understand, please write your question there in the chat and in the video comments, and I will be solving any question that you have. And I want to invite you to our next lecture next Sunday. We will be talking about the first mountain. So we are going to be seeing in detail the whole process related to the first mountain of initiation. Well, let me see if we have any question. Well, here I can see Angelica. Hi, Angelica. How are you? Also, Tuntu Mary. Hi, Mary. And Bampi Niblo. I don't know if that is the correct pronunciation. Bampi Niblo, I think. Well, it's saying thanks from Swansea, Ukraine. Well, thank you, Bampi. Thank you very much to you. And well, we have no questions, but if you have any question, you can write it down. You can leave the question at any time you watch the video, and I will gladly be solving or trying to solve any question that you have. So that is all for today. Thank you very much, and see you till next time. Ciao, ciao.